Congress to pass a bill establishing that the only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female. Not allow men play in women's sports.
Woke culture is not just a harmless social movement. It's a radical ideology that aims to upend everything that makes America great. And Trump was one of the few leaders willing to stand up and say, enough is enough.
I don't think that you're a friend to women.
I knew I shouldn't have picked her. I knew I shouldn't have picked her. All right, so let me give you that answer right now. I respect women incredibly. I have had women working for me in positions that they've never worked in terms of construction, in terms of so many different jobs. I had a woman who was in charge of the building of Trump Tower many years ago, before it was even thought, before anybody would have even thought of it, and did a fantastic job.
Trump recognized early on that woke culture was more than just a trend. It was a dangerous ideology that threatened to undermine the core values of America. Woke culture claims to promote justice and equality, but in reality, it's about control and conformity. It demands that everyone think the same way, speak the same way, and live the same way, or face the consequences. Trump didn't shy away from pointing out the hypocrisy and contradictions within the woke movement. While the left claims to champion diversity, they often shut down any viewpoint that doesn't align with their own. Trump called out this hypocrisy, making it clear that the woke agenda was not about inclusion, but about power.
As part of our new credentialing body for teachers, we will promote positive education about the nuclear family, the roles of mothers and fathers, and celebrating rather than erasing the things that make men and women different and unique. I will ask Congress to pass a bill establishing that the only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female, and they are assigned at birth.
Let's break this down further. Woke culture likes to present itself as the moral high ground, but the reality is far different. Take, for example, the concept of cancel culture. On the surface, it might seem like a way to hold people accountable for their actions, but in practice, it's a tool used to silence dissent and punish those who don't toe the woke line. Consider the countless individuals who have been canceled for expressing opinions that go against the woke narrative. Whether it's a celebrity, a professor, or just an ordinary person, the moment someone steps out of line, they're immediately labeled as problematic and ostracized. This is not about accountability. It's about enforcing conformity and crushing any form of dissent. Trump saw this for what it was and wasn't afraid to speak out against it. He made it clear that in America, people should be free to express their views without fear of being canceled or silenced. This message struck a chord with millions of Americans who were tired of being told what they could and couldn't say.
Not allow men play in women's sports. So crazy. See, it just shows you what these political geniuses, I have all these consultants, all these great... Sir, don't say that, it's very controversial. That's not written down anywhere, I just said, this might be a good time. So, he said, don't do it. And that gets the biggest hand of everything. Oh, it's crazy.
In 2017, NFL players began kneeling during the national anthem to protest racial injustice. Trump quickly responded, calling the act unpatriotic and demanding that team owners fire any player who disrespected the flag. This bold stance resonated with millions of Americans who felt that the anthem and the flag are sacred symbols that represent the sacrifices made for freedom. Trump's position wasn't just about football. It was about preserving the respect for national symbols that unite the country. The left criticized Trump, but his message was clear. Disrespecting the anthem is a direct attack on American values. This moment marked the beginning of Trump's broader battle against the woke movement, setting the stage for the confrontations that would follow. Trump's response to the NFL protests revealed a deeper cultural divide in America. The woke left framed the protests as a fight for justice, but many Americans saw it as an insult to the country. Trump capitalized on this sentiment, positioning himself as the defender of traditional American values. This clash highlighted the broader tension between patriotism and the woke agenda, a theme that would continue throughout Trump's presidency.
American values. We're proud of our country. We respect our flag. Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired.
In the summer of 2020, the country was rocked by protests and riots following the death of George Floyd. While the Black Lives Matter movement gained momentum, Trump stood firm, condemning the violence and calling for law and order. He refused to endorse the narrative that the protests were purely peaceful, instead pointing out the destruction and chaos that ensued. Trump's critics accused him of being out of touch with the realities of racial injustice, but his supporters saw him as the voice of reason. The riots were more than just protests. They were seen as an attack on law and order, and Trump's demand for stability resonated with those who were tired of the chaos. The BLM protests were a pivotal moment in Trump's presidency. While the left pushed the idea that the protests were a justified reaction to systemic racism, Trump focused on the violence and disorder. This approach further polarized the nation, but solidified Trump's image as a leader who was willing to take a stand against what he saw as an overreach by the woke left. His emphasis on law and order became a key theme of his re-election campaign, appealing to voters who were concerned about the direction the country was heading.
I want to express our nation's deepest condolences and most heartfelt sympathies to the family of George Floyd. A terrible event, terrible, terrible thing that happened. I've asked that the Department of Justice expedite the federal investigation into his death and do it immediately, do it as quickly as absolutely possible.
In September 2020, Trump issued an executive order banning the teaching of critical race theory, CRT, in federal agencies. CRT, which argues that America is fundamentally racist, was seen by Trump as a divisive and harmful ideology. He described it as toxic propaganda and took swift action to prevent it from being taught to government employees. Trump's move was widely praised by conservatives who viewed CRT as an attempt to rewrite history and instill guilt and shame based on race. This action against CRT was another clear indication of Trump's opposition to the woke agenda, which he saw as an attack on American values and unity. Trump's decision to ban CRT was a significant moment in his presidency. It showcased his willingness to take bold steps to combat what he saw as the dangerous influence of woke ideology. By targeting CRT, Trump was addressing a broader concern among his base that American institutions were being hijacked by radical leftist ideas. This move reinforced his commitment to preserving the traditional values that he believed were under threat from the woke movement. Trump's fight against woke culture wasn't just about individual policies or events. It was about challenging an ideology that he believed was eroding the foundation of America. Whether it was standing up against the NFL protests, calling out the violence during the BLM riots, or banning critical race theory in federal institutions, Trump made it clear that he wasn't going to let woke culture go unchallenged. Trump's presidency may be over, but the battle against woke culture continues. His actions have inspired a broader movement to push back against the radical left's attempts to reshape American society. As we look ahead, it's clear that Trump's influence will continue to shape the national conversation on these critical issues.
That if any teacher or school official suggests to a child that they could be trapped in the wrong body, they will be faced with severe consequences, including potential civil rights violations for sex discrimination and the elimination of federal funding. As part of our new credentialing body for teachers, we will promote positive education about the nuclear family.
Trump's battle against woke culture wasn't just about individual policies or events. It was about challenging the very foundations of the woke ideology. Woke culture thrives on the idea that America is inherently flawed and that everything from our history to our values needs to be torn down and rebuilt according to a new, radical vision. But Trump rejected this narrative. He believed in the greatness of America and wasn't afraid to say so. He believed that our history, while not perfect, is something to be proud of, and that our values of freedom, individualism, and self-reliance are worth defending. Trump's unapologetic patriotism was a direct challenge to the woke agenda, which seeks to undermine those very values. One of the most significant impacts of Trump's fight against woke culture was that it gave a voice to millions of Americans who felt silenced by the woke mob. For too long, people had been afraid to speak out against the excesses of woke culture for fear of being labeled as racist, sexist, or worse. But Trump showed that it was possible to push back against the woke narrative without backing down. Trump's fight against woke culture also exposed the movement's inherent weaknesses. Woke culture relies on intimidation and guilt to enforce its ideology, but it lacks a coherent or consistent vision for the future. The woke agenda is full of contradictions. It claims to promote tolerance, but often shuts down any viewpoint that doesn't align with its own. It claims to fight for justice, but often ignores or excuses violence and lawlessness when it suits its goals. Trump's willingness to call out these contradictions resonated with many Americans who were tired of being told that their values were outdated or wrong. They saw the chaos and division that woke culture was causing in their communities and appreciated Trump's strong stance against it. One of the most significant weaknesses of woke culture is its reliance on victimhood and identity politics. Woke culture encourages people to see themselves as victims and to define themselves primarily by their race, gender, or other identity markers. But this focus on identity often leads to division and resentment rather than the unity and understanding that the woke left claims to seek. Trump rejected this divisive approach. He believed in the power of the individual and the importance of personal responsibility. He encouraged Americans to see themselves not as victims, but as empowered individuals capable of achieving great things. This message of empowerment was a direct challenge to the victimhood narrative promoted by woke culture, and it resonated with many who were tired of being told that they were oppressed. Trump's approach to fighting woke culture wasn't just bold, it was necessary. Woke culture has been allowed to spread unchecked for too long, and the results have been disastrous. From the rewriting of history to the erosion of free speech, the impact of woke culture on American society has been profound. But Trump showed that it's possible to push back against the woke agenda without fear. He demonstrated that it's okay to stand up for traditional values, to speak out against the excesses of woke culture, and to defend the principles that have made America great. His unapologetic defense of American greatness was a rallying cry for those who felt silenced by the woke mob. One of the key reasons why Trump's approach was so effective is that he wasn't afraid to challenge the mainstream narrative. The woke left has been incredibly successful in controlling the narrative, using the media, academia, and Hollywood to push their agenda. But Trump refused to play by their rules. He used his platform to speak directly to the American people, bypassing the traditional gatekeepers of information and reaching millions with his message. Trump's use of social media, particularly Twitter, was a game changer in the fight against woke culture. He was able to communicate directly with his supporters, unfiltered by the media, and this allowed him to challenge the woke narrative in real time. His tweets often sparked controversy, but they also sparked conversation and debate, forcing people to confront the issues head-on.
No serious country should be telling its children that they were born with the wrong gender, a concept that was never heard of in all of human history. Nobody's ever heard of this, what's happening today. It was all when the radical left invented it just a few years ago. Under my leadership, this madness will end. Thank you very much.